night, dropping knowledge about them lineups that be tight. Daily fantasy football players on the rise, winning big bets while I'm looking to the sky. Star players in the mix, yeah, we know their names. Mahomes and McCaffrey, they playing the same game. Sleepers sneaking up, they gon' shock you for sure. Got my value picks and I'm bagging up the score. Tune in to the podcast where we stay fly, rolling out the lineups with a keen eye. Winning bets and sleepers, we don't lie. Catch us talking football, it's the casual guy. Find the good value in them underrated plays. Injured list changes almost every day. Got my notes and my charts like a playbook on the side. Hitting on the right picks, we ain't never gonna hide. We talk strategy and matchups, keep you in the know. Predictive analytics to help your bankroll grow. Daily fantasy lineups like a dream in the sky. Hop on this train, it's the casual guy. Action-packed episodes with some lively debates. Taking calls from the fans, always up for some weights. Lineup locks and rosters from the west to the east. Our advice is the best, it'll turn you to a beast. Star players in the mix, yeah, we know their names. Mahomes and McCaffrey, they playing the same games. Sleeper sneaking up, they gon' shock you for sure. Got my value picks and I'm bagging up the score. Tune in to the podcast where we stay fly, rolling out the lineups with a keen eye. Winning bets and sleepers, we don't lie. Catch us talking football, it's the casual guy. Find the good value in them underrated plays. Injured list changes almost every day. Got my notes and my charts like a playbook on the side. Hitting on the right picks, we ain't never gonna hide. We talk strategy and matchups, keep you in the know. Predictive analytics to help your bankroll grow. Daily fantasy lineups like a dream in the sky. Hop on this train, it's the casual guy. Action-packed episodes with some lively debates. Taking calls from the fans, always up for some weights. Lineup locks and rosters from the west to the east. Our advice is the best, it'll turn you to a beast. We talk strategy and matchups, keep you in the know. Predictive analytics to help your bankroll grow. Daily fantasy lineups like a dream in the sky. Hop on this train, it's the casual guy.
Maybe back to another DFS podcast. Thanks y'all for tuning in tonight. I don't know where I want to start with last week's picks. All I'm gonna say is this: at the end of the day, I pretty much exactly ended up even with some different lineups that I set. And you win some, you lose some. I think week 3 was a great week for value. Week 2, I got my butt kicked. And so we look towards week 5. And to be honest, I didn't love last week. I don't necessarily love this week either. You look at some players that maybe I picked in the last couple weeks, and their cost has gone up significantly, and that causes problems, right? Like as soon as I talk about them, their price point jumps thousands of dollars. But let's go ahead and get started with some of the picks that I had. Why don't we do this? Let's start with last week. Can I do that? Gosh, I'm not sure how to really navigate it on the website end of things. I'm pretty good at navigating it on the app, but maybe not so much on the website. So let's do this. Okay. Screen share. Well, let's just start by looking at some right before this show, I ended up drafting a couple of teams that I thought that, I could get some good value out of, that are high scoring players, and you know, some dudes that have been showing up, and I think probably some guys who have potential. They're not always going to be, uh, you know, uh, CD Lambs, things like that, like guys that are going to be automatic for scoring, with the exception of this guy, Jaden Daniels. We'll go ahead and look at his stat sheet. Let's go to the game log. So, fantasy points. Week 1, he had 28 points. Week 2, he had 13. Week 3, he had 28. Week 4, he had 25. Um, he started off week 1 at 5,700. Now he's up to 6,500. I still think this dude is a great value at the price you're going to pay. When we look at the quarterback position in DFS, uh, you might have a Josh Allen who's around 7 grand plus, something like that. Then you got a guy like Jordan Love, who's I think around 62, 6,300. And for me, if it, I played around a little bit with some of my lineups, and for me, if I'm gonna spend 6,300 on Jordan Love, why wouldn't I spend 6,500 on Jaden Daniels? This guy is the number 1 or number 2 fantasy quarterback, depending on what kind of like fantasy leagues you play. I understand that maybe the scoring might be a little bit different depending on your like actual fantasy leagues. But when we're talking about DFS, this dude's been putting up numbers, right? And it's not necessarily through the air. If we look at his, oh shoot, darn it. There we go. Sorry about that. If we look at this guy, he's had uh, 3 passing. Oh, here we go. This is what I want. He had he's had 3 passing touchdowns in 4 games, right? But he's still putting up, plus 25 numbers on 3 out of 4 weeks. Um, and really, I mean, it comes down to the rushing that this guy provides, and he's got a ton of value as a fantasy quarterback. And I think he has a ton of value as an, you know, actual NFL quarterback too. This guy's incredible. And I think, if you're asking me what quarterback I want to pick to start my roster, it's Jaden Daniels all day. And I'm not sure what's going to change that for me. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. This week he is 6,800 uh as far as your budget goes. But week 1 he was 5,700. So the dude's price has increased, but I think you're still getting a ton of value. I mean, if you could get 25 points out of a $6,800 player every single week, I think you're taking that. And so it just feels automatic for me. I don't care what the price is for this guy, I'm paying it. And I think it pays off, right? You're going to see that little fire logo next to his name. So this guy is a smash all day for me. We had Kenneth Walker come back. Now, last week I didn't talk about Kenneth Walker because I didn't think he was going to play, but he popped up to be available later in the week after I did the show, and he pulled out. I mean, this or pulled through. That sounds kind of weird, but this dude had 33.6 fantasy points in week 4. He didn't play weeks 2 or weeks 3, but in week 1 he had 21.9. I think the biggest thing with this dude is that Zach Charbonnet was irrelevant when Ken Walker was healthy. Um, he had 80 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns, 4 receptions for 36 yards. Uh, I mean, what more can you ask for? This dude is also set at 6,800. And if we, let's look at the running backs that are available later in the show. But I love what this guy did. I love what he's doing. Yes, there are health concerns there, but if he's a go, I think that he's going to get a big share of the snaps. So I love this guy as a fantasy this week. Let's see. I also got Chuba Hubbard. I think this is a good value here. 6,100 is what it's going to cost you, but through 4 games, he's never scored less than 16 points. Um, with his highest being let's see, week 3, where he scored 30 points, almost 31 points. He had 25.1 points last week. I think with Andy Dalton in the offense, this guy's fantasy value has jumped a little bit, and you're seeing the price point, right? Week 1, 5,300. Now week 5, he's 6,100. Last week he was 5,700, which was a great value for him there. um I don't, is he on the higher side? Maybe, but for an RB right now, I don't know who you're going to get that's cheaper, that maybe feels more automatic. This dude's really shown up in the last couple weeks with Andy Dalton, so I like what Chuba Hubbard's doing. I'm a Packers fan, and when it comes to sleeper wide receivers, I'm all over this team. And Jaden Reed is no longer a sleeper. He comes in at $6,500. And last week he had, let's see, 30.1 fantasy points. He had 7 receptions on 8 targets. Target share is good. It's not great, but he caught 7 of those and cashed it in for 139 yards with 1 touchdown. He had 1 rushing attempt for 2 yards, and that's whatever. But with Christian Watson out of the lineup, this guy is for sure the wide receiver 1 here in Green Bay. And I just love this guy's play. I love his ability. And anytime he's able to catch the ball, he's going to do something with it. Does this have yards after catch? It doesn't look like it. But he, as soon as he catches the ball, he does something with it beyond that. And that's what I really like about this guy. He likes to find the end zone as well. He's got 3 TDs on the season through 4 weeks. So almost a touchdown a game. You're not going to complain about that. So I like that is a wide receiver play. Once again, Terry McLaurin. I still love this dude. Jaden Daniels is not, he's not throwing the ball a ton, but when he does, like, you see some flashes out of Terry McLaurin. And last week he cashed in on 7 receptions on 10 targets, only 52 yards. He did get a touchdown. And that was good for 18.2 fantasy points. Last week, he had 23 fantasy points with a touchdown on 4 receptions for 100 yards. And so I think really his sort of, I don't know if you want to call it a floor, but what you can sort of expect is probably somewhere between that 4 to 7 targets. I'm sorry, 10 to 6 targets, and I think somewhere between that 4 to 7 receptions. I think the receptions could go up if Jaden Daniels a little more accurate. Not putting anything on him or anything like that, but I think you're starting to see a connection with him and Terry McLaurin. And I think the ceiling has not been hit with Terry. So let's go Big Terry. Jordan Addison. once again, I'm going to reiterate that I'm a Packers fan, and this dude smoked us last week. He had 3 receptions on 4 targets for 72 yards and 1 touchdown. But if you watch the game, I don't think this stat line really tells the whole story. I think this dude was on fire, man. Like, let's see, who are they playing this week? New York Jets. Okay, so kind of a better defense, I think, with the Jets. Um, I think all the attention is going to be drawn to Justin Jefferson as always. And so maybe that leaves Jordan Addison open on a few plays, and they could be those home run plays. So I like him for the price point at 5,300. And let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other wide receivers that were at that price point. I was like, no chance I'm taking those guys over Jordan Addison. As much as it pains me to pick a Minnesota Viking, I'm going to do it. We got Tucker Kraft for this lineup at the tight end position. Once again, with Christian Watson out, even with Christian Watson in, last week he had 6 receptions on 9 targets for 53 yards, 1 touchdown. He got you 18.3 points. So I like Tucker Kraft this week as well at the price point. George Pickens, um, I don't know exactly how I feel about this dude, but last game he smashed it, right? He had 7 receptions on 11 targets, so 113 yards, no touchdowns, but he got you 20 points. And at 5,700, he's had 0 touchdowns on the season. This dude has to find the end zone at some point, right? Is this the week? I don't know. He had a fumble last week, which isn't great, but um, you know, I still like this play at the price. It's 6 grand. Maybe I don't love it, but uh, compared to what I was left with at the flex spot, I felt like it was the best choice. This is my sort of, I don't know if you want to say locket pick for the week, but I love the Broncos D at $2,900 versus Las Vegas. If you've been paying attention to some of the news surrounding Devontae Adams, he's requested a trade, or the Raiders are entertaining trades for Devontae Adams. So does Devontae Adams even play for the Raiders this week? I don't know. If he does or if he doesn't, Patrick Surtain's going to be all over whoever their number one receiver is uh, going into this week. And I don't see, we saw the Broncos just completely shut down the Jets offense last week. Brees Hall had 4 yards. And the receivers had nothing. They scored no touchdowns. Like, this is a tough defense at a really cheap price. I think the top end defense is somewhere around 3,800, somewhere around there. And so if you can take this Broncos defense at home versus a not very good Las Vegas Raiders team, I'm taking that all day. I am going to mix it up just in case something happens, but that feels like a really good defense to play. Now, the second lineup, I got Jordan Love at QB. I do want to mix it up a little bit. Like, Jaden Daniels is playing the Browns, uh, to be fair, and they do have a good defense. So I want to like diversify it. That being said, I will set some more lineups. We'll go ahead and throw a new lineup out here tonight, and pick it with y'all. But I wanted to kind of diversify my lineups a little bit. So this one, I went with Jordan Love who's averaging 25.8 points per game. Uh, Geez, he threw the ball 54 times last week, and I know a lot of that was just desperation, because they were down by 28 points. But it doesn't matter in fantasy. The dude had 389 yards. He had 4 touchdowns. He did have 3 interceptions, but he still got you 34 points in fantasy. Now, last week he was at $6,000. This week he's at 65. And that's sort of my point with Jaden Daniels. Like, you've got Jordan Love at 65 and Jaden Daniels at 68. Like, I would way rather spend the extra $300 and have Jaden Daniels, even facing a tough Cleveland Browns defense. Um, he just feels so secure to me that he's gonna hit like at least 20, 25 points. And I think a lot of times with DFS, I'm going for floor. On some of the cheaper guys, I want to go for the um, home run plays and guys that have a huge upside. Another guy that has a huge floor, uh, Aaron Jones, man, this guy smoked us last week too. Uh, he had 22 attempts, 93 yards, 4 receptions for 46 yards. He got you 17.9 points. The previous week, he had 19 attempts for 102 yards. He had a receiving touchdown on 5 receptions for 46 yards, and that got you 28 points. So, um, if you're asking me to bet on whether or not Aaron Jones is going to find the end zone, I'm going to take the over on that. I think this guy is just a touchdown machine when he's healthy. And at $6,700, like, yeah, he might be on the higher side, but I think the floor is so high there that you have to go with it. So I like that play. I did go with Josh Jacobs. I don't love Josh Jacobs a ton, if I'm being honest, even though I am a Packers fan. But last week he only had 9 attempts. I understand that they were down by 28, and the game script was not there for him to be running the ball. But week 2, he had 32 attempts on 151 yards, in a receiving touchdown. I'm sorry, a fumble. Yikes. And that was 17 points. So he feels, yeah, maybe I don't love this. Maybe I'm digressing, and I might change him out at some point. But I think this lineup that I'm speaking about currently is sort of a homer lineup. Once again, I've got Jaden Reed. I still love him. I got Xavier Worthy with Rasheed Rice going down. Uh, I don't think the Chiefs necessarily have like a standout wide receiver one. Obviously, he had that first game where he crushed it. I mean, he only had 2 receptions for 47 yards, but he had a touchdown receiving, and then he also had a touchdown on a rushing play. It was his only rushing play of the game, but Patrick Mahomes is going to be able to find this guy, and he's going to be looking for him. His targets, he's got 3, 4, 4, 4. Not a ton going on there, and that's okay. But I think with Rasheed Rice out, he didn't have a lot of options. And you see how they're using Kelsey to this point this season. He did have like Kelsey had the best game of the season last week. And they may lean on him a little bit more, and you may see more of like last week's game script where he gets some action. But I'm not counting on it. I think Mahomes likes those guys that are gonna stretch the field, they're gonna go deep. So I do like Worthy this week. Alan Lazard, This one was maybe more of a budget play, right? He's in at 4,500. Uh, and last week he had 5 receptions on 8 targets on a Denver defense um, that was probably shadowing Garrett Wilson the whole game. Um, did not have a touchdown, but that's okay. But he still got you 10 points. I mean, I'll take 10 points at 4,500 bucks. I'll take 10 points. So I think he's kind of a solid floor guy. Once again, we're going back to Tucker Kraft in this lineup. I stacked pretty heavy on the Green Bay Packers with this one. And then I go back to Garrett Wilson. It just does not feel good drafting this dude, if I'm going to be honest. He's got probably average, he's averaging 5 receptions per game, somewhere around 50 yards per game. He's averaging about 0.25 touchdowns per game, which you don't love. But, the first 3 weeks, he had at least 10 points. Last week, he was a little bit lower than that. You're playing Minnesota. Now, Minnesota's playing some great football, but their defense doesn't necessarily scare me off from Garrett Wilson. I think eventually, if this Jets team is going to be successful, they got to figure out a way to get Brees Hall going all the way. Brees Hall needs to be the focus of this offense. And then that expands into a guy like Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, um, Mike Williams, hopefully at some point. Um, and then I did pick the Packers D here. They're playing the Rams. Obviously, the Rams have quite a few injuries in the wide receiver category. And let's see, what do we got going on? Packers have averaged about 2 interceptions per game. Um, Golly, they had 8 sacks in week 3, and they just ran through the Texans. But um, you know, week 1 they had 7 points. Week 2 they had 11. Week 3 they had 21 points, and then last week they had 7. And they're relatively on the cheaper end. This feels like a safer play for me, going up against the Rams, and I like the price. Like I always try to find the cheapest defense I can find that is maybe a bad matchup uh, for the offensive team. But a good matchup for the Packers, I think. So we'll see there. This last lineup I've got, I went with Geno Smith. And if you watched Monday night, this was the game to watch. Geno came in last game at 56 attempts, 38 completed. I think uh, DK Metcalf had a really good game despite not finding the end zone. Um, and so I think there was a little bit left to be desired there, but the writing's on the wall. A couple of things could have changed, and DK finds the end zone. I think he got tackled at like the 2 yard line or something like that. Um, and so I could in a different universe that dude might have gotten to the end zone. Let's see. Let's go to the chat. Worthy is worthy of targets. And yes, we are so back. Hey, take it easy on my keeper. Who's your keeper? Rogers is just getting him warmed up. Well, he's not even getting him warmed up. Like if I go to the game 1 with Garrett Wilson, I think he lost all of Aaron Rodgers' trust in that first week. And Garrett Wilson's been trying to earn it back every single week since, and I still don't think he has. Um, and it makes me uncomfortable. I have Garrett Wilson in one of my fantasy leagues, and I was really high on him, and I just don't see it there. I've watched Aaron Rodgers for a lot of years, and when he falls or when a receiver falls out of favor with Aaron Rodgers, like it's a long road to get back to the top with him. And that's my worry here with Garrett Wilson. I think the dude's got all the talent in the world, but I still don't trust it. I did go with Bijan Robinson, and compared to some of the top running backs, like what this guy could be capable of at 7,100. Yeah, it's a big spend, and he hasn't really shown me anything that he deserves the big spend. But if we look at his, points per game, last week was 11.4, 13.6. The week prior, 16.2 in week 2, and 14. So he hasn't really hit above 15 points, and that's troublesome. Um, he has one touchdown on the season. I think this guy is way more capable of that. And, we have another in division game against Tampa Bay, who is killing it right now. Like the Bucks are on fire. Baker Mayfield in the gang. And so, we're in Atlanta at least. Maybe they, you know, Falcons aren't a bad team either. And I gotta kind of lean that maybe he gets a goal line carry that he takes to the house. So I'm gonna keep putting faith in Bijan. I picked Chupa Hubbard again. I went for the stack with Geno Smith and DK Metcalf. I just love the way they played last week. Um, and I think there's more there. Let's go ahead and take a look at DK. Last week he had 12 targets, his second most of the season to date. He had 7 receptions on there, but he got 100 yards, 104 yards. He did have a fumble, but he cashed in for 19.4 points. And if we look at his season to date, week 1 was a total dud. Week 2, he had almost 32 points. Week 3, he had 23.4. And last week, he had 19.4. So I think you're going to see DK get into the end zone this week. It feels like the time. I went back to Terry McLaurin because I think, he's another dude that I think should be finding the end zone. He's got 2 touchdowns on the season, and he's had 2 in the last 2 games. So I think Jaden Daniels kind of finding his groove with him. And, McLaurin maybe has, the yardage isn't there for me. Week 3, he had 100 yards, but besides that, the most yards he had was last week at 52 yards, which isn't great, but I think you're seeing a connection between those two. So I still like Terry McLaurin there. This is my dude. Like, if you're looking for a good, cheap wide receiver who's getting targets, for me, it's Ray McLeod. Last week he had six receptions on 7 targets for 52 yards. And if you're playing PPR, you'll take the receptions all day despite the yardage. Last week he had 11.2 points, 5.7 the week before, 7.5 week 2, and 9.2. So he's not great. He's not spectacular, but he's getting targets. I think that week 3 he dropped maybe it was week 2. I can't remember which one it was, but he had some good looks and he just dropped the ball. But, Kirk Cousins is still looking for this dude, and I think that's only going to go up, especially if a guy like Kyle Pitts is producing absolutely nothing for that team. So I do love Ray McLeod at a $3,900 price point. Let's see. He started off the season at $3,000, so he's going up. So get in cheap while you can. Pat Fryermuth, he's averaging almost 10 points a game. So I like that. Last week, he had 16.7 points. So that's a good sign. He did find the end zone on 7 targets with 5 receptions at 57 yards. So it's starting to trend up with him. And the Steelers are playing well too. So shout out to you, Ev. That's your boy. Um, so I like Fryermuth at like a value tight end. And the truth is, like, who do you trust as a tight end this season? And for me, I don't know that I trust any of them. And then lastly, I come back with the Broncos in the D at what is it, 2,900. I mean, that's too cheap playing a bad Las Vegas team that may not have Devontae Adams. So I think that's a smash play all day. Let's do this. I'm gonna we're gonna do a little interlude, and I will be right back. Sorry.
Drive kings all day, value players in the mix. Find the hidden gems, that's how I get my kicks. Daily found in my kicks. Daily found in my kicks. Daily fantasy, this one's for you and me. Set your lineup right, and you'll see the victory. Check the NFL stats, who's hot and who's not. Scout the matchups hard, gonna take my best shot. Listen to my podcast, get tips on who to play. Join me every week, together we'll slay. Daily fantasy, this one's for you and me. Set your lineup right, and you'll see the victory. Check the NFL stats, who's hot and who's not. Scout the matchups hard, gonna take my best shot. Listen to my podcast, get tips on who to play. Join me every week, together we'll slay. Daily fantasy, this one's for you and me. Set your lineup right, and you'll see the victory. Yo, Garrett's casual guy on the mic every night. Dropping knowledge, talking lineups that be tight. Daily fantasy, football players on the rise. Winning big bets while I'm looking to the sky. Star players in the mix, yeah, we know their names. Mahomes and McCaffrey, they play in the same games. Sleeper sneaking up, they gon' shock you for sure. Got my value picks and I'm bagging up the score. Tune into the podcast where we stay fly. Rolling out the lineups with the keen eye. Winning bets and sleepers, we don't lie. Catch us talking football, it's the casual guy. Find the good value in.
All right. Well, we'll cut that. All right. So let's get to the fun stuff. Let's go ahead and set a lineup. Let's go ahead and set a new lineup. How about that? All right, here we go. Okay. Lobby. And once again, I don't really like playing the big budget ones. I think the biggest thing for me is just throwing out a bunch of different lineups. I do like playing Thursday Classic, all game sets. Thursday. I like playing uh, the Thursday through Sundays, but usually come Sunday, I will start playing a Sunday through Monday. I like to do some of the early Sunday, mid Sunday games, and then I kind of go from there. But three $3, 15 grand at 5,900 people. Let's send it. I'm not gonna do that. We're gonna create a new lineup. And once again, like, I do hate sort of the format on the computer with DFS, but that's okay. Where do you guys get started? Because I usually do get started with the quarterback, and then I can kind of go from there. Um, Kirk Cousins? What's Kirk doing? Not a lot. So I don't like that. I like to look at fantasy points per game on average. All right. Yeah, here he is. Now here's the question. Like, if I take Baker Mayfield at 6,600, once again, I just keep looking at Jaden Daniels at 6,800, and I just think that's the spend. Not that it's even a spend. You're still 700 bucks cheaper than Lamar Jackson, and I think you get just as much value out of Jaden Daniels as you do Lamar. So we're gonna go ahead and smash on Jaden. Go ahead and roast me in the chat for that. Um, and I will go ahead and once again pair him with Terry McLaurin. I still love that price point. I'm gonna go look at running backs. Um, I really like Ken Walker. I know he had a huge week, and it's easy to say that, but I still like him there. As I sort of look down this list, I mean, who do you like? Kareem Hunt, Cam Akers. Okay, he's on I think a good team. And they're playing a terrible defense in at least rushing defense in Buffalo. DeAndre Swift, no. And they're also playing a bad defense in Chicago. So that's where I kind of settle in with Chuba Hubbard there. This running back list, like as you go down the list here, like it just looks awful to me. Um, there's nobody that I like. Emmanuel Wilson? I mean, no. Like I know that at a $4,300 price point, I can find a wide receiver that's going to be more reliable than Emmanuel Wilson getting some sort of fluke run. Justice Hill, I think he's making a case for himself, but as long as Derrick Henry's still healthy, like I just can't pull the trigger on that. Najee Harris, I hate your guts. Every single time I draft you in fantasy or in DFS, you never show up for me, even with Jalen Warren out. Picked you last week and you gave me nothing. You're garbage, dude. I hate you. Nasty work. And Brian Robinson, I don't love a running back against the Cleveland defense. And so I just keep coming back to these same guys at running back. Like, I don't think it's Josh Jacobs. Well, maybe it is Josh Jacobs because I could see the game getting a little out of hand in favor of the Packers. I don't know what the point spread on that game is. I think it's only like 3 points. That the Packers are favored away. Let's take a look. Now I'm just going off Yahoo here for the spread. But yeah, they're 3.5 favorites away against the Rams. But the question is Jair Alexander back? Not that really affects the run game too much against the Rams with Kyron Williams, but I just gotta believe that the Pack come back a little bit. So, okay, if I go Josh Jacobs at 6,400, I still have Ken Walker at 6,800, Aaron Jones at 6,700. All right, let's do that. Let's mix it up a little bit. I'll go Aaron Jones there. Um, the defense. Like, okay, let's check it out. 49ers defense, 3,700. Or would you rather like, okay, Steelers have a good defense. They're also playing Dallas, and I think Dallas is still going to get theirs. They're going to get some yards, that kind of stuff. Commanders, I looked at this pick, and while Cleveland has no offense, essentially, right? Like, if you're going to spend 3 grand on the Commanders defense, I would rather have the Packers against the Rams at 3 grand. And once again, the Broncos at 2,900 against the Raiders. So I'm going to take that one again. Um, let's mix it up a little bit and go towards the tight end. Ooh, Travis Kelsey might not be a bad play here at 5,800. Um, he's the safety net, and I think he hasn't had a great start to the season. I think they're sort of limiting what they want him to do on the field, but he had 9 targets last week, which is almost double what he had the week prior. So, do I want to pull the trigger there? I just don't. Jake Ferguson, uh, okay, but he's at 4,800, and what is he doing? I mean, he got some targets. He's, probably averaging around 8 or 9 targets per game. Um, 49 yards week 4. He was out week 2, 95 yards in week 3. I mean, it feels like a safe play, but I think you can still find better value. Like, I would probably rather have like a Dalton Schultz at 4,100 than I would um like a Kyle Pitts at 45, or a Jake Ferguson at 48. If you're gonna go that route, like, okay, Isaiah Likely at 4,400, that feels like a value to me. Oof. 2 targets, 1 target, 3 targets, 12 targets in week 1. Okay. And you look at his fantasy points the last 3 weeks, he's probably averaging around 2.5 to 3 per game. You don't love that. That looks like regression to me. But then you see Mark Andrews just doing absolutely nothing. That guy is a blocker. So maybe I don't love that as much. Uh, ah, Tucker Craft, 3,500, 23rd defense. Kind of feels like the play. I know I was big on Cole Kmet last week, and I think Cole Kmet could still go off at 4,300, but I'm like I hold grudges with that sort of stuff, so I'm not gonna go there. I think I will go. Um, 5,800 for Kelsey or 3,500 for Kraft. We'll throw in Kraft on there. All right, wide receiver. Now, what do I got left to spend? Average remaining player right here is at 5,900, which is pretty good with 3 players left to pick. So I think let's dig into the wide receiver. Gosh, okay, I'll go Xavier Worthy there. Ooh, Jaden Reed at 6,500. Let's see if we can find a little more value, and then maybe we could spend up. Because we're sitting at 5,800 per player beyond that. Rashid Shaheed, uh, I don't know. Like, last week he did all right, right? 8 receptions, 11 targets, 83 yards, no touchdowns, 2 rushing attempts. Okay, he did have a fumble. He had 16.7 points. And with the exception of week 3, where he caught 0 targets, 0 of his 5 targets. He's been pretty solid. But if I'm spending 5,600 bucks, like I better not see a zero in a game you played. Jawan Jennings, you can see week 3 was sort of his smash week. Uh, 11 of 12 for 175 yards, 3 touchdowns. It's not going to get much better for that guy. And last week he had 3 receptions on 6 targets at 88 yards, so you can't hate that. Comes in at 11.8 fantasy points, but at 5,600, like I think you can find a little bit more. And is it Romeo Dobbs? Not at 5,400. Romeo Dobbs has done nothing this year. Really. 4 targets. I'm sorry, 4 receptions on 8 targets last week for 39 yards, 7 points. It just feels kind of like meh, whatever. There's not a lot of upside there. I think there is upside. I shouldn't say that. But if I was going to pick Romeo Dobbs at 5,400, I'd rather take Dontavion Wicks at 5 grand. Dude had 13 targets last week, 5 receptions. That's bad. Did have 2 touchdowns. It's got you 24.8 points. So, is he gonna drop 8 passes again? Probably not. He did get you 78 yards on those 5 receptions, so he could be a little bit of a flyer there. But I'm gonna keep looking. Alec Pierce seems to be toast. Uh, Jalen Nailor. Let's do this. I'm gonna look at the games that we've got going on. Where are the Giants? There we go. Wandell Robinson at 5,600. All right, that's the one I like. I'm gonna throw him in there. He is questionable. He did not practice today, but a questionable doesn't scare me off necessarily. I think Neighbors is also questionable. What's the story on Neighbors? Won't part. Yeah, he's coming off a concussion. Didn't practice today. Uh, that one scares me a little bit. So I feel good, even with Neighbors in the lineup. Robinson's he got 14 targets last week, 8 the week prior. Week 1 he had 12. He caught 11 of his 14 targets last week. Didn't have a touchdown, but he still got you 18 points. And I think this guy is on the up. So let's go ahead and let's stick with him. Now I've got 6,100 left to go. What the heck? Oh, that's what's going on. There we go. All right. So 6,100 left to spend here for the final pick. Deontay Johnson, 6,100 bucks. 13 targets, 83 yards last week, 1 touchdown. I think the Andy Dalton effect is in play here. Last week he had 14 targets and 122 yards with the touchdown. So that might be the true um that might be the true Deontay Johnson with our boy Andy Dalton behind center. But then you look at what's around him, right? Like, man, Khalil Shakir, he could be a nice play. Targets aren't there for me. I mean, 5, 6, 5, 3, 62 yards, 72 yards, 2 touchdowns on the season, but I don't know. I'm not there. So we will go. They're playing Chicago. They ain't rigged. It doesn't really scare me. So I'll go ahead and throw in Deontay Johnson in there. We'll go ahead and set our picks there. But these are kind of what I got for the lineups this week. And, I didn't really pick anyone who's too expensive, too cheap. Um, Whatever. I think, I've got a couple guys that I like in Xavier Worthy and Terry McLaurin, Jaden Reed, Jaden Daniels. I do like Kenneth Walker quite a bit. And, looking at the lineup I just drafted, maybe I go to a Kenneth Walker instead of a Bijan and I can um, maybe bump up. Oh, no, I can't do that because I've got Kenneth Walker in the flex. Um, but maybe I pull a Bijan and throw Kenneth Walker into that running back spot, and then I wait, that's not the lineup I just drafted. Yeah, this one. I don't know. I will mix things up a little bit as it gets closer to the deadline on Thursday or Sunday, whatever it is. But for today's purposes, those are the kind of plays I like at the price point. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully, we get a couple hits this week. I said, like I hated last week's pricing and everything about it. All the guys I picked in week 3 have bumped up quite a bit in price, and the same is true this week. So we'll see what happens, but that's kind of what I got for you this week. So thank you all for tuning in. I'm gonna go ahead and call it a night, and we'll stay tuned. Feel free to hit me up on X, tag me and whatever, call me out, whether the picks are good or not. It's at Casual Guy Cast on the X machine. So yeah, if not, I'll see you back here probably on Friday. I'll be doing Ryan's show for my weekly WWE hit on the If You Don't Like That network for the Royal Rumble Friday on the King's Court. And then I'm kind of planning on running a show after the King's Court to talk a little bit about Raw this week, do a little preview of SmackDown, and of course Bad Blood on Saturday. And we'll probably run another show on Sunday, Monday, somewhere in there, recapping the weekend WWE shows. But as far as it goes tonight, thanks for tuning in. We will see you in a couple days. Peace.
Names Mahomes and McCaffrey, they playing the same game. Sleeper sneaking up, they gon' shock you for sure. Yo, it's Casual Guy on the mic every night, dropping knowledge about them lineups that be tight. Daily fantasy football players on the rise, winning big bets while I'm looking to the sky. Star players in the mix, yeah, we know their names. Mahomes and McCaffrey, they playing the same game. Sleeper sneaking up, they gon' shock you for sure. Got my value picks and I'm bagging up the score. Tune in to the podcast where we stay fly, rolling out the lineups with a keen eye. Winning bets and sleepers, we don't lie. Catch us talking football, it's the Casual Guy. Find the good value in them underrated plays. Injured list changes almost every day. Got my notes and my charts like a playbook on the side. Hitting on the right picks, we ain't never gonna hide. We talk strategy and matchups, keep you in the know. Predictive analytics to help your bankroll grow. Daily fantasy lineups like a dream in the sky. Hop on this train, it's the Casual Guy. Action-packed episodes with some lively debates. Taking calls from the fans, always up for some weights. Lineup blocks and rosters from the west to the east. Our advice is the best, it'll turn you to a beast. Players in the mix, yeah, we know their names. Mahomes and McCaffrey, they're playing the same games. Sleeper sneaking up, they gon' shock you for sure. Got my value picks and I'm bagging up the score. Tune in to the podcast where we stay fly, rolling out the lineups with a keen eye. Winning bets and sleepers, we don't lie. Catch us talking football, it's the Casual Guy. Find a good value in them underrated plays. Injured list changes almost every day. Got my notes and my charts like a playbook on the side. Hitting on the right picks, we ain't never gonna hide. We talk strategy and matchups, keep you in the know. Predictive analytics to help your bankroll grow. Daily fantasy lineups like a dream in the sky. Hop on this train, it's the casual guy. Action-packed episodes with some lively debates. Taking calls from the fans, always up for some weight. Lineup blocks and rosters from the west to the east. Our advice is the best, it'll turn you to a beast. We talk strategy and matchups, keep you in the know. Predictive analytics to help your bankroll grow. Daily fantasy lineups like a dream in the sky. Hop on this train, it's the casual guy.
Peace out. Have a good night, baby.